Welcome back to Picard. We kick off with a montage of the synth uprising on Mars in order to provide us with some context before we join up with the man himself, now an admiral and in charge of the evacuation of Romulus with a fleet. The fleet which has been blown up. So that's a little crimp in the plan there. That was 14 years ago, so like I said on the Short Trek review, the two girls that we saw watching those events are now old enough during the setting of Picard in present day to be in Starfleet, or at the very least to have grown up somewhere. But it doesn't matter because they are not showing up, so congratulations on your wasted time. So we're seeing Picard meet with Raffi, where he explains that in the wake of the event, synthetic life forms are all being shut down. And without them, there simply isn't going to be the manpower to handle the evacuation. Raffi is upset and suspects the Tal Shiar, despite the fact, as Picard rightly notes, the Tal Shiar would be sabotaging the salvation of their own people. I mean, we're all familiar with burn the village to save it, but not, the village is accidentally caught on fire, quick, sabotage the fire trucks. Picard says that he's done all that he could. He even said he would resign if they refused to support his revised evacuation plan. And of course, after a lifetime of service, saving the Earth, thwarting the Borg conquest of the Federation, and oh yeah, traveling through time to ensure the golden age of the present could actually happen, well, there's no possible way they could do anything other than say, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out.
We'll find a way.
To mount a multi-world evacuation of tens of millions of Romulans without Starfleet support.
There has to be something. Some last, desperate, wild solution, JL? That's what you do.
I'm afraid there's no way that a quantum is going to pull your fat out of the fryer on this one. Even multispectral quantum isn't going to help. What's even better, Raffi gets called up, knowing that with Picard gone, they're ready to toss her out on her ass faster than you can say live long and piss off. After the titles, we're back to the present on Raffi's estate near Vasquez Rock, the place made famous by Kirk fighting the Gorn. Their problem isn't quite that straightforward, which is for the best. Picard does not look like he's up for that kind of a fight. In fact, I barely think he can survive this argument without suffering at least a technical knockout. Raffi talks about how stupid he has been behaving, and makes the point about how cushy his landing was after seeing him on TV, sitting in his chateau with its vineyard, while she's living in what looks like a 24th century trailer in the desert. This is something I've long wondered about, because whether or not there's a post-scarcity society, no matter how much we can say we have no need for money, real estate is finite. There are only so many parcels to go around. The high-demand ones is what I'm talking about, you know. There's only so many seaside spots on the south of France or picturesque views in the Alps. And obviously, things stay in the family. Where the Picard vineyard is proof enough of that. So, how exactly does this work? It's something that I've wondered about for a long time. I'm not trying to imply that Raffi is stuck out here because the system is broken that's responsible for this. We know that she is incredibly paranoid, and it's entirely possible that she picked this place because it's isolated. But it's also possible that, having made someone's shit list at Starfleet, that the department that arranges your living conditions, since without a market I can't really see anything else being done but have somebody in charge of just assigning you different places where you can choose to live, and that maybe the bureaucrats were less than cooperative because of that, and this was the best out of a lot of awful options for her. This is all speculation, and there's plenty of room to speculate, and that's by design. You can say it's a perfectly working utopian system, and you don't have to give the details. You could just say that it works, and so it does. Except one can also say that that's propaganda, and that this is actually some kind of corrupt Brave New World situation where party line does not necessarily match up with what the reality of things are. I mean, we have seen cases where people say one thing, and then we find out the reality of it's quite different. Like Riker and Tasha's actions suggesting that nobody uses animal products in the Federation anymore, while we later hear about O'Brien's mother using meat. And it's something that's not horrifying, but amazing to learn. And we see that cooking with clams is so mundane a task, the most important thing to know about it is that it's a damn chore to have to clean the things first. And I'm saying that that's a good thing. Maybe the broad strokes cover over some fascinating minutiae of how all of that actually works. The stuff that challenges what people see as Gene's utopia is actually making it something closer to utopia. That Earth is a paradise not because everybody agrees with me, but because there are diverse viewpoints and everyone is happy to just tolerate each other. Anyway, what has Rafi upset isn't that Picard is a chateau and she's living in a slightly oversized meth lab. Is that he doesn't call up until he wants something from her. He never inquired how she was doing in all that time, and she wasn't doing well. To her point of view, he threw away her career alongside his own in an empty gesture and didn't care where she landed. But still, he did bring wine. That's not nothing. Picard soon apologizes for his past behavior and explains to Rafi about the Tal Shiar cell and how it couldn't be happening unless someone was allowing it, someone pretty high up. This matches up with what Rafi had been saying for a long time about a bigwig in Starfleet that allowed the attack to happen. That was connected to the Romulans. She even had evidence to back up some of the Romulan connection. This, by the way, should not be confused with the film The Romulan Connection about catching people smuggling ale across the neutral zone. She hooks him up with a pilot named Rios, but she's not going to get involved. She doesn't want to get pulled back into all that crap. Picard naturally respects her decision.
I'm sending you everything that Daystrom had on Bruce Maddox.
I don't want it.
Carry on.
Back on the cube, Soji's treatment of the nameless drone catches the attention of an ex-Borg who's in charge. An ex-Borg by the name of Hugh. Hey, welcome back. You kind of look better and you kind of look worse. But you're back. He speaks to her about the plight of the ex-Borg, the frequently warehoused or exploited, so he appreciates her approach. Neither of those. So much so that he's going to let Soji speak to one of the liberated Romulan drones by the name of Ramda, like Soji had asked. She thinks that a shared mythical framework can be a key to helping these people, and Ramda's background means she has the potential for significant insight on that. So, in the immortal words, help me Ramda, help me Ramda. So Hugh personally escorts Soji to the place where the Romulan X-drones are kept. They're also known as the Disordered. So, we're off to a good start. That's a name that's loaded with nothing but affection, isn't it? Ramda is using triangular tiles for some purpose. Could be a game, could be a ritual, could be picking out exactly the right mosaic for the patio. But the use of the one standing for the false door, the one in the front of a Romulan house that is never used because Romulans like being sneaky, prompts Soji to sit behind Ramda until she gets invited to speak. I suppose if someone is right behind you and doesn't stick a knife between your shoulder blades, the least you can do is talk with them. I think I read that in a Romulan etiquette guide. As for Picard, he arrives on Rios' ship and is warmly greeted, but not by Rios. Well, not exactly. This is just a hologram. It looks exactly like Rios, but it's an EMH, here to treat Rios' injury. He looks like Rios, like all of them look like Rios, because hey, why tamper with perfection? Rios mostly grumbles and smokes his cigar while the EMH does its work, questioning Picard about whether or not this is illegal or part of anything illegal. Probably just to decide whether or not he should charge more. Picard looked into him. Rios had been in Starfleet, but he's not anymore. His ship was wiped from existence by Starfleet records. Just like Archer's, probably.
I don't know what happened to you, Rios, or to the Ibn Majid, but 5 minutes on the ship, and I know precisely what I'm looking at. You are Starfleet to the core. I can smell it on you.
That's probably just the liquor. In private, Rios gets a visit from the ENH, the emergency navigation hologram who talks with an Irish accent rather than an English accent like the EMH. He's here to say that he completed the repairs to the navigation system in the wake of their latest hijinks. No doubt the reason that Rios was carrying around some spare tritanium in his shoulder. The ENH waxes on about how Picard is so great until Rios gets sick and shuts him off. But not before mentioning the ugly death of his last captain in Starfleet, when his brains were splattered all over the wall. Obviously something tragic happened. Or else he failed Admiral Janeway for the last time. Well, not to worry, Rios. No one's going to shoot Picard's head off.
And let's do the phones.
On your ship. Won't shoot his head off on your ship. Picard attempts to join in the fight, but faster than you can say, not in the face! He's reminded why he shouldn't be trying to use melee combat. So instead, he takes up a disruptor. That's a lot more in his wheelhouse. And though they do take out the ones inside, there's one more left taking up the rear. Must have needed to park the car a few blocks away. Before he can do anything, though, he gets shot from behind by Agnes, who's got a Romulan disruptor. Somehow. Guess everyone's got one these days. It probably just show up in the mail all the time, the way the AOL CDs did back in the day. People are just tossing them out in the garbage because they're happy with their Klingon disruptors. The one prisoner that they caught is tied to a chair while Agnes explains that she came after getting a visit from Admiral O. We'd seen her show up at the Daystrom Institute earlier. That'll teach him to stay off the furniture. This scene addresses the differences in makeup between Romulans over the years. That some of them are smooth and some of them are ridged for her pleasure. The ones with the ridges are Northerners. The bad guy says that the girl isn't what Picard thinks, that she's the destroyer, and then decides that he's had enough and uses some kind of acid to kill himself. Not the way I'd want to go, but I guess that's what Northerners are like. On the cube, Ramba is willing to answer, but she dislikes suggestions of myth and mythology, preferring to call the things that she does news. Just a few millennia late, I guess. Soji explains that a particular note is that Ramba's ship was the last assimilated by the cube before it shut down, which might explain why this happened. But Ramba is horrified to realize that Soji is one of the sisters, as she calls them, putting down a tile in the empty space that we'd seen inside of her layout. So she'd been waiting for that one, or it's worth a lot of points if you can put it there. Ramda freaks and grabs a disruptor off one of the Romulans, but soon puts it to her own head, requiring Soji to intervene before she can pull the trigger. But some of the things that she said about being the one that dies prompts Soji to call her mom, who seems rather unbothered that Dodge was killed by rogue Romulans. But her rambling is more likely just there to put her to sleep. I've had a few conversations with relatives that were like that. Romulan boy toy finally swings by to lift Soji's spirits when she wakes up, but this is just a follow-up to what had happened, as he reports to his sister afterwards. And he makes sure to remind her that the difference in their approach is that he shags the robot, while she fucks things up with the robot. So, why don't you let him do his way? As for Picard, he's still got to deal with Agnes, who has just seen a man melt in the study, but despite that, still wants to join in the search for Soji. She's rather adamant, in fact, and given her expertise, Picard figures it's a worthwhile bet. Maybe help avoid screwing things up like the last one. As a bonus, they find Rafi up there. She knows where Maddox is, and has a reason to head there anyway, but she's not coming along to help. She's just hitching a ride in exchange for info. So, I guess we're off then, and...
Engage.
Don't get used to that, Picard. Don't get used to that.